Hi, today I'm going to show you briefly how to do a paired t-test in R. A paired t-test is a type of test that you might do in a field ecology experiment where you're doing some kind of a manipulation and seeing the effect. And an example might be if I'm out doing point counts and then I might play back an alarm call of a certain type of bird, and then I do another point count to see how the birds respond. There's lots of different types of tests you might do and questions you might ask where you're making an observation, doing a manipulation, and then observing again. So what you have is a sample with a before and an after observation. I have a sample data set here in R, and I have it set up like this where your samples are numbered. You might have sites that you can compare by. In this case, we're just going to do the overall data set. And then you have a before measurement and an after measurement. It could be numbers of species. It could be numbers of responses. It really depends on your study. So there's the data set. To get this, make sure you're telling R that you're using the correct data set. You need a series of codes to make sure that it's reading the correct data set. And one very important one is that you're telling R that you're using this data set paired. And you enter it and it's telling us, okay, it's pairing up that data set. And then you also need to make sure you're identifying your X and your Y variable to run your t-test. And so you do that by designating each variable as X and Y. And so we have an X that's before and a Y that's after in this case for a paired t-test. And you'll see as we set it up that you have to tell R that it's a paired t-test so that it can make the correct comparisons. So we have this code here where you're actually using the caret, basically the arrow symbol, to designate that in the data set that we've already assigned, which is the paired data set, you then select, and it's actually, I'll type this again because it's pretty straightforward. To tell it that the X variable is, and it will come as a pop-up menu, your before measurement. And then you semicolon Y, another arrow, and then you identify the data set as the paired data set. And then again, it will have this drop-down menu and you can select after measurement in this case, or whatever your X or Y variable is. Once you've done that, it's shown us that it's identified these things as the X and the Y, you can enter this code for a paired t-test. And you type in t.test, okay? I'll actually just retype this. T.test, okay? And you type in X, Y, paired. You need to make sure you're telling it that it's a paired. And the default for a t-test is false for paired. So you have to type in true. And then you have to type in what your alternative hypothesis. So you're basically telling R if it's a one-sided or a two-sided. In most ecology experiments, you're looking for a two-sided t-test for your alternative hypothesis. And you hit enter, and here are our results, okay? It's showing us what our data is. It has the test statistic, which is T, which is negative 16.501, 42 degrees of freedom, which there were 43 samples, so it's just n minus 1. And our p-value, which is it's very, very small. It's 2.2 to the negative 16th, so 16 zeros in front of that 2.2. Very small p-value. And so we're very confident that this difference between the before and the after is a true difference, okay? And so then it's also showing us the mean of the differences. And the assumption in the null hypothesis for a paired t-test is that the mean difference is zero, roughly zero. Okay, so that's a paired t-test in R.